While college football is becoming a culture of transfers and NIL, Clemson is continuing to grow their culture built on loyalty.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Clemson podcast. My name is John Bivens. I am your host. You can follow us over on X at I am John Bivens. We are a credentialed media member for Clemson in baseball, basketball, and football. Thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We are a part of the amazing Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Here on Locked On Clemson, you're getting three things: all sports, all passion, all of the time, where every day we are bringing you everything you need to know regarding Clemson sports. Today is Wednesday, August 7th. We're going to talk about Clemson as a program of loyalty, how fall camp is doing so far, and Saturday's the first scrimmage that we're going to see of this team. Let's talk about what we need to see and what we're hoping to see from them. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app now, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Clemson is a school of loyalty. And when it comes down to it, that is a major key when it comes to this university. Right now, transfer portal has been a hot topic, right? Everyone is talking about the transfer portal. Which school had brought in the best class. There's now a metric of now you're not only ranking which school has the best recruiting class, now we're talking about which school has the best transfer class. That's huge, right? That's become a major part. I mean, the new college football game that has every aspect of the game. Now you have to adjust your playing style to prevent key players from transferring. So it's a major part of this program. It's a major part of keeping players happy, giving them enough playing time, keeping the coach long enough, doing whatever you can to keep a player happy. So now you're not only having to try to get recruits, you're also having to compete to keep your players. Brand new area of sports, brand new area when it comes to college football. And college football is a program now where everyone around it's focused on NIL. How can we play the players? How can we increase the players, how much they're making? Also, what are we going to do about transfer portal? How can we bring players in? And now you're not, again, it's just you're having to recruit your own players to stay with you. But in the middle of all that, one university who's been getting so much heat, I mean, so much flack for their transfer, is maybe they're not hitting the best on one side of it. On the other side of it, they are thriving. I mean, thriving. And here's what I'm talking about. Clemson University all season has been talked about how they are one of four schools that did not bring in any transfers. The other three schools was Army, Navy, and Air Force. Clemson is the only non-service school, a non-military service, that did not bring in a transfer. And yes, that's embarrassing. I'm a Clemson fan. If you couldn't tell, that's why I'm doing the show. That's why I'm a credential media member, because I love Clemson University. A little embarrassing to not have one transfer come in this year. But at the same time, while everyone's hating on it, while everyone's hating on the fact that we don't bring any players, while everyone's hating on the fact that we didn't recruit any transfers from other schools, one thing that people are not talking about is how we hardly lost anyone in the transfer portal. In a world where FSU was pretty much replacing all 22 players, yes, that's an over-exaggeration, but when schools like that are bringing in high-profile players to take the spots of every starter, Clemson is not. And they're not doing it for a couple of reasons. Dabo's talked about it, why they're not bringing in transfers. One, there's a very few guys that fit Clemson culture out there. He talked about how there's three types of guys. Dabo talked about how there's three types of guys in transfer portal. The ones that aren't good enough to play at Clemson, the ones that already know where they're going before they enter the portal, and then there's just a formality to enter it. And the third kind of guy that doesn't want to compete, the third kind of guy that's going to come in there, and he can't compete with the money that Clemson can't compete with NIL money. But one thing that Dabo is continuously talked about is how he doesn't bring in transfer portals because of those, but also because he's loyal to his guys. If his guys are faithful enough to choose Clemson, then they know Clemson's going to be faithful enough to offer them a scholarship and keep their spot. They don't bring in other players because they believe in who they have. They're loyal to the players that they have. And that's a culture. Loyalty isn't something that's just like, what's going on? But loyalty is truly something that's grown. It's a culture that is giving. It's kind of like this. Healthy choices aren't natural, right? So I'm in the middle. I'm trying to lose some weight, trying to get more healthy, eating better, running. My natural instinct is not to eat healthy. My natural instinct is to grab a can of soda. My natural instinct is to eat all the fudge rounds that I can fit in my mouth, right? Like that's my natural instinct. My natural instinct is to sit down and watch college football or play college football, is to be very inactive, relaxing. My natural instinct is not to put on a running shorts and t-shirt and my Hokas, not sponsored, but if you want to, throw it out there. And that's not my natural instinct, but yet I choose to do it because I'm trying to be healthier. Loyalty is like that. Loyalty is not an accident. Loyalty is not something that just happens. It's something that has grown. It's something that is fostered, that is very intentional. And Dabo has done an excellent job at creating this culture of loyalty. Prime example, DeMonte CapeHart. He is an excellent player. He plays on the defensive line. He is someone that is an excellent player overall, but he's also been at Clemson for a long time. He is entering into his fifth season. He came in 2020, 2021. He's about to enter his fifth season. And when he came into Clemson, he was the top 60 player in the nation as a recruit. Top 60. That doesn't sound out of the normal, right? Clemson gets great recruits. What's different about him is, in the 4 years that he's played with Clemson, he hasn't started one game. In his first season, he only appeared in 4 games. Second season, 5 games. Third season, 13, no starts. And then last season, 12 games, but again, no starts. In this culture of college football, he wouldn't have lasted this long at Clemson, right? Most players would be out of there. They'd be looking for a spot to start. They'd be looking for a spot where they can get the attention, where they can draw in the interest, where they can go and prove themselves as a starter. CapeHart did not. CapeHart was like, no, I'm sticking with this team. I'm staying true. And when they asked about him, he answered, he said it's because of the coaches. He says they have the best coaches in the nation. Nick Eason, his positional coach, he bragged about him and his loyalty to him and his excellent part on the field, all the things that he plays through. He talked about that. He then went through and he talked about Dabo, and he talked about Dabo as a coach who is loyal to his players, who shows up day in, day out, knows, and every player that plays for Dabo knows they're not just there so Dabo can win championships. They're there so Dabo can help them become the best young men that they can be. Dabo has created a culture of loyalty, and that is so rare in today's age. NC State is a great upcoming season, or a great up and coming school, or up and coming. They're very nationally known, but their football team's on the rise right now. Right, it seems like they're making all the right moves. The two of the most prominent players on the football team, if you're a casual fan of a team, most likely you can name quarterback and running back. This year, NC State brought in a brand new quarterback, a brand new running back to lead their team, with Jordan Waters at running back from Duke and Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. They go out and get different players. Florida State gets all kinds of different transfers. Georgia transfers, Alabama transfers, Ohio State transfers, right? Like, transfers is a part of the culture. If a player's not playing, if I'm a top 60 player and I'm sitting the bench for 3 years, but another team's offering me a starting role, I'm going to them. Clemson doesn't have that problem because Dabo has created this culture where his players know if you come to Clemson, he's going to be loyal to you, and all he asks is that same loyalty in return. That's why Clemson every single year has players who haven't played a lot, who are coming in as juniors, not seeing a lot of playing time, and then busting out playing really, really well. You look at CV, Christopher Benzina. He's a great quarterback, was one of the best recruits in the quarterback. He's about to enter his sophomore year, and he knows he's not starting this year unless Cade gets hurt. He's staying with Clemson because there's that loyalty feature. So while you can bash on Clemson as much as you want about not bringing in transfers, you better show some respect on how this culture is a culture of loyalty, and that is something that no other school in the nation can claim other than the service academies, which are in a league of their own, right? So there's respect there. I'm tired. You have every right to say stuff about not bringing in players, but you don't have the right to talk about that and not talk about the fact that they're having lower transfer rates than almost any other school. Clemson is a school of loyalty, and that shows on and off the field. In the middle of fall camp right now, you hear the players talking about different interviews, talking about different aspects where they're talking about how much they love being at the university. Whether or not they're going to play or not, they love being at Clemson. It's a culture of loyalty. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about more about fall camp. We're 6 days in. Today's day 7. We'll talk about what we've seen so far. So we'll be back in just a second. MLB is in full swing, and very little is better than Clemson University game day, but MLB games are right up there with them in second. I love going to different ballparks, feeling the vibe, feeling the energy of the stadium, but my go-to ticket place for all MLB games is the Gametime app. Gametime is an authorized ticket seller for all MLB games, and they're the easiest place to go to for all your ticket needs, whether it's in advance or the day of. Prices on Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Braves, they had a little slump, but they're starting to come back. They're leading the wild card race. Padres are my team. They're coming back in. They're fighting for that second wild card spot, just a half game behind Braves. I love being in the stadiums watching this. And no matter who your team is or what the race is, Gametime is the best place to go for MLB games. Some of my favorite things are I love you get 60% off when you're buying last minute. You get a panoramic view of whatever your seat is before you buy it. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. Now, go listen to your second show after you finish this one. Go listen to a great one like the Locked On College Football podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McCaughlin gives you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find all that and so much more on wherever you find your podcast and on YouTube. Just search up Locked On College Football podcast for some great stuff. They are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, as are we, your team, every day. And so we are officially in the middle of fall camp. I say in the middle, we're really at the beginning of it. And we've seen some great stuff. We've seen some amazing stuff in practices and players getting out there. We've seen their first day with pads on, with the shells on. Today is the first day of full pads that the players will have. They're still not going to be doing any tackling, but they will be in full pads today. And I just want to go through and talk about how we've seen some amazing stuff. Dabo had some comments, and there's a lot of excitement around this team. So far, we've seen 6 days of practice, and according to Dabo, 5 of them, the players brought everything they needed to do. They said there was one day where they wish it was a little bit better, but Dabo took the responsibility, said that it wasn't coached how it should have been, didn't push blame on the students. But he did say that there was one day it wasn't there, but so far everything is seen exactly what he's talked about. And so between different interviews and what we've seen, what the reports we're seeing, and Dabo's comment, we just want to go through and talk about some highlights of what we've seen so far and what we're going to continue to see. Health-wise, it seems like the team is in a very healthy spot. There's a few guys banged up, different positions throughout different roles of the field, but nobody major. We haven't seen any huge players, any huge starters. Knock on wood. I have a wood desk. But yeah, so we haven't seen any huge players get injured so far, and hopefully we won't see that. A couple banged up here and there, but for the most part, we're still completely healthy. When you hear a lot of what specific rooms people are talking about, one of the biggest areas that come up that people are talking about is the cornerback room. The cornerback room is one, it's younger than a lot of times. It's younger than the past for Clemson, but it's one that so many people are talking about. At cornerback, you've got Jaden Lucas and Avian Terrell as the starters, but you have Corian Gibson, Tavoy Fegan, Miles Oliver, Brandon Stozier. You've got some great players in that cornerback room. And 3 of the players that I just mentioned are either freshmen or redshirt freshmen. Avian Terrell's a sophomore. Jaden Lucas is only a junior. We don't have any seniors in our cornerback room at all, right? Left cornerback, you've got a sophomore, freshman, redshirt freshman. Right cornerback, you've got junior freshman, redshirt sophomore, redshirt freshman. We got a young group. And when Dabo was asked about him, he highlighted a lot of these players. He highlighted players like Gibson. He says Gibson and Ashton are completely showing up. Day in and day out, they are playing out of their mind. Tavoy says that he is playing excellent. He's someone that you've got to watch nonstop. He did talk about Brendan Stozier, who's a little bit lower on the depth chart, but in the spring, he was a little injured, had some stuff. He couldn't be there during the spring. But now he's there, and he says he's catching on. He will make a difference this year. Over our cornerback room was one last year that was questionable. There was many times last year it was like, what is going on in this secondary? But this year, it truly feels like this young core is going to be really electric, going to be really exciting to watch. Same kind of spot, but opposite side of the field. Dabo is just as high on our wide receivers. TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco, I've not heard one negative thing as far as what we should be worried about out of these two players. TJ Moore, the biggest thing that they've talked about what he should work on is his consistency. Dabo says there's a couple balls that he wish he would consistently bring in, but overall being great. He's got a great work ethic. He's coachable. He's athletic. Everybody likes him, and he's really competitive. Bryant Wesco, Dabo straight up said, he said, look, Bryant Wesco could play today, but he needs a little bit more time just because he just joined the team in January. So talking about how he's there. These young wide receivers are ready to be there, ready to make a difference, need a little bit of work, one with just getting used to the team, one with some consistency, but they're going to make a player. But don't forget about the wide receivers we have. We still have Adam Randall in the slot. We still have Antonio Williams. We have Tyler Brown, who was an all-ACC freshman team last year. Going to be electric. And let's be honest, I think Tyler Brown, I think he's getting slept on right now based on Cade Klubnik getting all the attention, based on the two freshmen that are coming in, going to make a huge market into it. I think he's getting slept on just a little bit, but he's going to be great. I think he's going to make a big difference. And Dabo is talking about how this team, this wide receiver group, looks really, really good. When they asked about biggest development, like who's made the biggest jump so far, Dabo responded, look, it's too early to tell, but man, Wade Woodaz is playing out of his mind. So when you hear linebacker at Clemson, a lot of people go Barrett Carter. Some go Sammy Brown, a true freshman coming in. Dabo's all about some Wade Woodaz. He's playing out of his mind right now, making the right reads, making the right movements, being in the right spot. So excited to see him taking that role. He talked about 4 different other aspects, talked about the backup quarterback room. There was some question marks, but it looked like CV is officially taking that role. And he's saying everything that he's doing, he's showing what it needs to happen at QB2. Talks about Pearman's playing well at QB3, how Klubnik, CV, and Pearman are all getting a lot of reps at those top 3 spots, and they're all playing really well. He even talked about Paul coming in at QB4 role, how he's doing what he needs to do at that spot. So a lot of confidence from the coaching staff being present there in the locker room or in that QB room. In the running back room, obviously, we talked about last episode. If you want a more deep dive into the running back room, head back and listen to yesterday's episode. But Phil Maffa, going to be the leader of the squad. He's going to get the most carries. He's already said he'll get plus 15 every game. He's going to be the leader. Who's going to be there behind him? There's been a lot of question marks on this. You got David Eazy-E. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but everybody calls him David Eazy-E. You've got Keith Adams Jr. You've got Jay Haynes. And Dabo's high on all 3 of them. He had a little comments on each of them today. Talked about Jay Haynes is a player that you notice every day. No matter what's going on, you notice he's there. Keith Adams, Dabo's word, I'm going to quote this. He said, Keith Adams is in a category of his own because he is just different. He makes the plays. He's strong as an ox, and he has a lot of confidence going there. That's a great movement, quote by Dabo about you. If Dabo says that about you, he means it. So Keith Adams could be there. David Eazy-E. Dabo talked about how the jump he's made from spring to now. Honestly, in spring ball, all the reports were saying he was the disappointment of this RB room, not making the right moves. Just seemed like the pace of the game was a little overwhelming for him as a freshman. But Dabo talked about the jump he's made from spring to now is so large. Huge gap right there. So that's exciting to see. It sounds like we've got 4 really solid running backs in that room. Last 2 things he talked about. One was just talking about the closeness of the team, how everybody's bonding, how that 5-game win streak from last year to end the season ended really high. It motivated the team really well, and a lot of the guys that returned kept that momentum. And then the last thing he talked about is something that all Clemson fans know. It's a struggle. It's a struggle, and that's the kicker battle. Right now, we've got two kickers that are really competing. Dabo says that right now it's competing to the point that whoever outperforms the other each day is kicker one the next day, and that could change the day after. So right now, our kickers are Robert Gunn III, who's a redshirt sophomore, and then we got Nolan Hauser, who's a freshman. I'm really excited about Nolan Hauser. I think he can make a big difference. Dabo said early on in the fall camp, first couple days, Robert Gunn was leading the way, was kind of taking that top spot the first couple days. But he says now the past couple days, Hauser has came out. Hauser was kicker yesterday, was kicker number one, and then outperformed him. He went 3 for 3. Robert Gunn went 2 for 3 from field goals. And so Hauser will go out as kicker number one tomorrow or today when practice happens. So exciting to see. There's a lot of great things happening at fall camp. Everything encouraging. I'm not seeing anything that's like, what? Like anything discouraging or worrisome or concerning. I'm not seeing anything like that. I'm seeing a lot of very encouraging, very exciting to see. If you're a Clemson fan, there's a lot of excitement to be happening right now. Now, the next big step that happens in fall camp is our first scrimmage, and that's Saturday. When it comes to our first scrimmage, we got a lot of questions that we want to see answered. We'll talk about all that and more right after this break. Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. What we are so grateful for all of our everydayers. Those of you who listen every day to the show, dive in, whether it's on YouTube or on anywhere you get your podcast at. We appreciate our Locked On Clemson loyal fan base and everything that y'all do. And make sure if you're looking to dive deeper into Locked On Clemson, make sure you join our insider program. All you have to do is text Clemson to 864-252-1907. You get 14 days free to try it out. What it is it provides so many great benefits. One, you can have one-on-one conversations with me at any point. When games start happening, we can chat about the games. You send me a message. Hey, did you see that play? What's your thoughts on that interception by Wade Woodaz? What's your thoughts on that bad throw by Cade Klubnik? I'm not calling that. I'm not foreshadowing that. Just an example. But we can have those one-on-one conversations. You can also send in questions and comments that we might address here on the show, and we'll give you a shout out. Right now, we got a great guy named Alex that messages with us. Appreciate him jumping in on there. But we talk about the show, or we talk about the podcast and stuff going on anytime we talk. So excited about that. We've got some people in there right now. Jump in that insider program. You also receive some bonus videos. Once the season starts, we're going to release some videos, content on YouTube that is only available to our Locked On Insider program members. That's going to be some film studies. It'll be some live reactions to games. It'll be mailbag episodes. We'll do some post-game coverage that are sometimes only available to our Locked On Insider. So make sure you're joining that for all that kind of aspect. But back to fall camp. Saturday, August 10th, this coming Saturday, is the first scrimmage with this team. We had spring day, but this is the first scrimmage with this team. And I think, in my opinion, there's 5 big questions that we need answered in order to have confidence for this team. Question number 1 is obvious. Can Cade Klubnik, what level is he at? What level is Cade Klubnik at? Was the spring game how he's going to be, that inconsistency, or is he going to be back to who he saw at Kentucky, especially that fourth quarter? What level is he going to play at? Can he limit the turnovers? Can he make the right reads? Can he put hero ball down and make the simple plays and let the big plays form themselves instead of trying to force things? Is he going to be the player that can truly be the quarterback everyone expects him to be in a great way? Or is he going to be the quarterback that all the people that expect him to unperform be there? So a lot of questions surrounding QB1. Hopefully this scrimmage will show that. I would love to see him come out. I don't need an amazing stat line. Show me a stat line of like 10 for 14 with over 150 yards, maybe even just over 100 without an interception. That's my biggest one. Can he have 0 turnovers? No fumbles, lost or not lost. No fumbles, no interceptions. If that can happen, I got a lot of hope for him this season. I think that answers a lot of questions. Second one is running back room. The question does not revolve around Phil Maffa. He's going to be the key back. He's going to get most of the carries. He's going to have that. The question is, how often are all the other running backs going to be used? Is Eazy-E going to be RB2? Is Jay Haynes or is Keith Adams Jr.? who's going to be QB or RB2 and how often are they going to be used? Are we going to see a lot of 2 running backs on the field? Are we going to see them use as many as blockers, pass game? What's going to happen there? Excited to see that. Wide receivers, got a couple questions in the wide receiver room. One, are the freshmen as good as everybody's been saying? Is TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, are they going to come out and perform like they did in spring ball? Even more, less? Is their level what these coaches are saying, or do they need more time? Are they going to make an immediate impact this freshman year? Also, is Tyler Brown going to keep being who he was last year? Is he going to take the next step of growth? Who's going to be our main wide receivers? Like, who's going to be that core? Who's going to be our wide receiver 1, 2, 3? I think the scrimmage might show us a little bit of that results, not the final results, but it'll give us some insight. Our defense, my biggest question defense is this. It's not a specific group. Let's just keep the progress going. Can this defense keep the Clemson culture of having an excellent defense lead us? Excited about that. And then the last one is kicking game. Kicking game hurt us last year. There was multiple times we shouldn't have kicked a field goal, but we did because we had to settle. Is that going to be the new norm? Is that going to be there this year? Or can Nolan Hauser or even Robert Gunn find his way? How's our kicking game going to be? So the scrimmage is exciting. I'm excited to see it. Excited to see what's going to happen, what happens at the scrimmage. We can't wait to watch on Saturday and all that aspect. But until then, we're just going to keep talking. We're going to keep talking about the team, talking about expectations, and so much more. We'll talk about next week. We'll talk about if we saw these answers or if we didn't. But with all that being said, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen today. Now go check out Locked On College Football. I'm telling you, it's a great podcast. Spencer goes through and gives you such great content. Make sure you give that a listen. It is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, as are we, where it is your team every day. Later this week, again, we've talked to you about it. We're going to go through a positional argument. Where does Georgia, where is Clemson in that each position? Who has the edge with those as we get ready for kickoff of week 1? We'll talk about more aspects of fall camp and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're excited to keep these conversations going. We also would love to hear from you. Send us a message through our insider program. Drop a DM on X. Drop a comment on YouTube. We would love to hear feedback on everything we talked about today. And if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, wherever you get your podcast at, or if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button there. That way, every day we can be your first listen here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. Make sure to check out all the other podcasts from the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. We can't wait to see you on tomorrow's episode, but until then, it's right here. You keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring. And as always, you know what to do? Do you know what to do? Go Tigers.